The compact car segment once seriously thrived in North America and in Canada, obviously. At one point, they were the best-selling cars, volume, bar none, everything. They were the car that automakers had to have in order to create volume and even boost sales across the brand because they were the gateway into that brand. As I'm sure you all know, things have changed dramatically in the last 15 or so years, make it 10, 15, no 15 because we are in 2025, where a lot of automakers have essentially abandoned the segment. Others have kind of settled on their laurels. Specifically in some ways where, say, Toyota, Honda, and Nissan have kind of accepted that they will only make their models evolve. The Corolla, Sentra, and the Civic. Though I must say that Toyota with an all-wheel drive hybrid model kind of made it interesting, and yes, there's a GR Corolla, but then over at Honda there's a Civic Si and a Civic Type R. But those are not volume cars, obviously. So what am I trying to say is that the Civic is always a Civic. The Corolla is always a Corolla, the Sentra, and so on and so forth. But there's another group, the Hyundai Motor Group, that insists on reinventing the wheel every time they revamp a model. Even in a segment where, well, which is not quite as relevant as it once was. Now see, before me is the all-new 2025 Kia K4 sedan. Now, if you take a stroll down memory lane with me, some 26 years ago, in 1999, in my first dozen and a half or so press cars that I got to drive was a Kia Cephia, which is the great-grandfather, if I'm doing it, or great-great-grandfather, I don't know, the great-grandfather to the K4. And I remember thinking it was a pile of junk, but that doesn't matter, because after that came the Spectra. You probably, perhaps, don't remember that one either at all, because though it was fairly popular, none of them lasted beyond 4 years, give or take. And then came the Forte, which is the one that had the longest tenure over at Kia for being its compact entry-level, near entry-level, that was a Rio, compact car. And it was popular and it did well and it wasn't a terrible car. But Kia, Hyundai, being what they are, when they reintroduce or they introduce a new generation, they just clean slate the whole thing. And this is exactly what they've done with the K4. In many respects, they've done exactly what Kia always does. But in some respects, they kind of missed the mark, and it's an unusual one. You see, Kia, despite the advances, despite the design improvements, despite everything, still remains one where consumers assume they get a lot for their money, value, right? But you see, there's another automaker, which strangely enough, I rarely mention this vehicle from this automaker because I actually have owned one for 25 years, Volkswagen and the Jetta. Yes, the Jetta. The final remaining manual transmission car over at Volkswagen, only in one version. And it is the version that I want to essentially pit against this K4. Anyhow, what I'm trying to say is that this is an exceptional automobile. It is incredible. And if you look at it from your angle, it's kind of tough to say or to see that it is very big, but it is humongous. But then again, all compact cars now are ginormous. And I did specify this is the sedan. And though I have not seen physically with my own eyes the K4 hatchback, I can tell you right now that visually it makes more sense just based on the pictures than the sedan. I'll kind of identify what I'm trying to talk about in the following few minutes. This, as you can see in the caption, is actually a Kia K4 GT line, which is their current performance version with the more powerful engine, the brakes and the suspension and all of that. And it is the one, I think, that, well, you wouldn't want to consider because of the existence of the Jetta GLI. You'd expect the Jetta to be far more expensive, but the reality is that it isn't. In fact, there's a very, very narrow gap in price. Yet the Jetta gives you a lot more Now, I bet you didn't think that was even possible comparing, say, Volkswagen to Kia, but here we are. Anyhow, in the following video, what we will do, as per the norm, is take a walk around this compact car. I'll give you an idea of how big this car is using other models in Kia's lineup, existing, non-existing, depending on where you're watching this video from. And then I'll point out some of the design things. And then obviously, as always, we end on a drive note, which I shouldn't be surprised, but I was, how good this thing is to drive. But there's one element that bothers and concerns me very much. And just to lead on to that quickly, I always say that Kia or Hyundai products, you don't want a long-term relationship with them. You want 4, max 5 years. Yes, I know I picked up a Kia EV9, but it is on a 4-year lease, right? So at least I'm staying true to what I say about long-term reliability. Anyway, now I'm just going on and on. So if you don't mind, please hang around as we explore the all-new 2025 Kia K4 together. Let's get base pricing out of the way right away. So the base LX in the US is $21,990, whereas the same LX in Canada is $23,995. Makes a lot of sense. Standard equipment, basically unbeatable. 12.3-inch touchscreen display, smart key access, remote start, heated front seats, 16-inch wheels with hubcaps. That's right, that's pretty cool. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's pretty damn complete. Now, if we want to talk about size, now as you look at the length overall here, okay, so we're going to use inches because it was just quicker, but I'll give you an idea. Do you remember the Kia Optima, which was the predecessor to the K5, which is still offered in the US but not Canada? It was 191 inches overall in length. The K4 is 185 inches overall in length. That was a mid-size, this is a compact. Essentially, for my Canadian friends, the K5, or the Optima I should say, is 15 centimeters longer. So pretty much, a little bit more bumper, and you have the mid-size Optima compared to this compact K4. But the crazy thing is that mid-size Optima was just over 73 inches wide, whereas this is just shy of 73 inches wide. There's about a centimeter. Essentially, there is no difference width-wise between the two cars. That's why it looks so massive. Now, before I tell you about the GT line, the styling is, the front end is a little bit of an acquired taste, but I suppose maybe now making payments every month to Kia, I've kind of grown accustomed to their design language. The car is very squat, very sleek and profiled, but you can kind of see here from this angle, there's something really odd about the final window, the upside down triangle there, and where the quarter panel at the end begins or stops. And that's because, the glass is actually there. So the back glass and the final piece of glass just at the C-pillar connect. That is very, very unusual. And depending on the angle that you look at it, it's actually really awkward. I do like the mildly integrated ducktail in there, and the tail lights work for me, but there's something, see, kind of from this angle, it's definitely unique, very special. But this is why I say the hatchback makes a lot more sense with the taller glass and the longer, less profiled roofline. It just makes a lot more sense. So, and the back glass isn't as big as it kind of wants you to believe because there is this black plastic panel there. So yeah, you kind of see what I'm trying to say. It's unusual, a little bit odd. And there's another detail I hate. The kids kind of found it funny that there was no door handle in the back door until they found it, but it's not an unattractive car, but it definitely isn't the most subtle. But like all Kia and Hyundai products, you see one, turns your head, and then you see them all because they're just all over the place. Okay, so at the other end of the spectrum is this car, almost. This is the GT line, which in the US starts for $28,090. In Canada, it begins at $31,495. With that, well, you get the turbocharged 1.6 liter engine. I'll tell you more about that. Heated rear seats, heated steering wheel, 18-inch wheels, 12.3 inch digital instrument cluster. Replaces the 4.2 inch cluster in the basic cars. So decent amount of value. Now my car specifically, and the first reason you can tell is because the black wheels has the limited package, which adds $3,000, which in my mind is completely and utterly pointless, because for $34,495 you get these black 18s, extra driving aids, which you don't want anyway, Harman Kardon audio, not worth it. So definitely if you want the 1.6, $31,495 for the base GT. What I want to say is that if you want to go to the GT line with the limited package, or just the GT line period, you're facing off with the Jetta GLI. And in 2025, the base GLI, well, only comes one way, is $34,995. So compared to my car, $500 difference only. But you do get the choice between a 6-speed manual transmission or a 7-speed DSG, compared to this only available currently anyway, 8-speed automatic transmission. And the Jetta has a lot more power, it's just as fuel efficient, and far more attractive if you ask me. Just the base Jetta, by the way, is $25,795. So it's about $1,800 more than the base K4, and you don't get steel wheels with hubcaps. Okay, so let's finish the tour. So if you want to open the rear trunk, there's a button right there. 413 liters of boot space, which is actually very decent. The depth is good. The opening is very, very wide. It's really cut out at each extremity. So that's nice and lovely. Now, as far as the interior is concerned, lots of space in the back. Admittedly, even between the two seats, well, you can't really squeeze anybody, but there's still a fair amount of legroom. Lots of legroom, my driving position. Some of the choices made for the materials and the design decisions, with the USB ports right there, really nice. But this plain black seat back, I don't know why they didn't put a pocket as they did on both sides. 3 setting rear heated seats, which is always a lovely touch. Now getting up front, now this is another thing. See, like the Japanese automakers probably won't go to the extent where the Korean automakers will go with the visual impact. Who puts white on a steering wheel? But the visuals, the impact, very, very nice. It's totally upscale. You see, the effort went into the styling, and despite the fairly large and very deep bolsters, these are not the most comfortable seats I've ever sat in. In fact, I'd say they're borderline okay for, say, a 45-minute drive. After that, you're wiggling in your seat, and that's despite the adjustable power lumbar support. But, still, there's your dual 12.3-inch display, which has become very common in the segment. Start it up. Yeah, the steering wheel is actually really cool. The grip is fantastic. But then again, in most Kia products, the steering wheels are just plain awesome. You get the paddle shifters as well. It's cool, but it's just going to get dirty. It's kind of pointless. I do appreciate more and more the controls on the door for the cooled and heated seats and all of that, and the steering wheel. So I display. Everything is straightforward as you expect. I'm not going to waste any time on that. Hard buttons for the HVAC controls and the menu controls, it's great. Actual shifter. In the interior, it's not as nice as what you get in a Civic. But again, there's an effort there. Yes, there's interior lighting. Visibility is not incredible, I have to say. And you get much better in, say, a Subaru Impreza, which... Again, Subaru, that's like the Japanese automakers where they stick to a recipe, though they've ruined the Outback. But anyway, drive mode buttons, that's it. Sport, normal, nothing else to say. And on that, I think we will hit the road now. I will give Kia some points for the effort they did put into making the GT line sound sporty. And a cold start, the exhaust actually sounds, good, convincingly good. And just before I go on, I do want to say that I know that the WRX is definitely an option in this price range and segment. I'm just focusing on front-wheel drive models for now. That's it. That's all. Still love the Rex. Okay, so moving on. So the main reason why you want to get the GT line is for the 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which is very, very common across the lineup. I mean, this begs the question before I go on, will they make a full fat GT with, say, a 2-liter turbo in the future? Doesn't seem like it would make much sense, though, like the Elantra is still a very badass car, and it's really cool. Okay, so the 1.6 liter puts out 190 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, if I'm not mistaken, and 195 pound-feet of torque from 17 to 4,500 RPM, meaning that it actually pulls quite nicely. And wide open throttle, which I was, the sound again is very convincing. I mean, I'd buy this, the idea that this is a performance-oriented compact car. But the problem isn't the 1.6, which Hyundai and Natural Resource Canada say you will average or return about 8 liters per 100 kilometers. I can't get it under 9 and change, but that's just me. The driving conditions are good. I'm actually quite enjoying this car's handling. But before I touch on that, my biggest issue is the 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, I knew it was an 8-speed automatic transmission, but when I drove off with this car, I thought they had fitted this with a dual clutch transmission. Because in normal mode, it is so slow on the uptake. It feels as though just mild-ish throttle application. Like, I get the impression like the clutches are slipping before they begin to grip, and then we start moving on. Because there's such a massive delay between, foot in and transmission activating. It's better in sport, but barely so. The transmission is this car's biggest weak spot as far as the drive is concerned. Now, if I compare that to the 6-speed manual transmission GLI or the 7-speed DSG, the DSG is brilliant. The 6-speed manual is irreplaceable, in my opinion. So for that reason alone, even if you wanted only the 1.6 and not the limited package with the whatever other bells and whistles, the GLI is still a far, far more interesting performance sedan. Now, the handling, surprisingly good. This thing is dialed in to perfectly meet your comfort needs and your handling needs. I'm not going to say that this thing stays completely flat when you're cornering and it is utterly, unflappable and very, very predictable. It's still just a K4 GT line. But for all intents and purposes, steering is reasonably light. I mean, it does weigh up a little bit when you go into sport. But the multi-link rear setup, you can tell that it's sport-tuned or just overall. But it's never harsh, never compromised. Even on my greater Montreal area, just terrible, terrible roads. Frankly, the bottom line is the transmission, which needs to be completely retuned, revisited to dial out this, what I can only surmise as being a self-preservation tune. For, take that as it, whatever it might mean to you, but it shouldn't be this, well, I guess sloppy is the best way to put it. For every other reason, this is a fabulous, sporty, compact car. But if you want the true sport compact car experience, they're still semi-reasonably affordable. Civic Si is still the best, but your Jetta GLI, especially with the 6-speed manual transmission, is the sweet spot. Again, front-wheel drive. A WRX is nearly always the answer if you want all-wheel drive. But this is a lovely car, but they have to do something about the transmission. And that's it.